first and foremost, I guess there's a few different ways. My Yale team has continued to be there, even though I'm no longer swimming for Yale. They've checked in with me every day. My coaches, my teammates, and the first person to train with me and see my leg was a Yale teammate who flew from Canada. And so they've been incredible. And of course, like the teammate who saved my life, and actually another one, Hannah, was the one who was in medical school in Miami and helped me through my life-saving surgeries there. So the presence of team there has been incredible. And then I think about my coach, who's coached me since I was 12 years old, and he's been like so heroic in helping me just adjust and learn and train for Paris. And I also think coming into the Paralympic space has been just, I'm so grateful for the Paralympic movement and for Paralympic swimming. And so many of the swimmers and the coaches have wrapped me in warmth and love and support. And it's truly been so helpful in this first year of recovery to have that space to feel physically strong when, in other ways I'm not, and or working to regain that. And, Jess Long is one of those who's been so instrumental in I feel so lucky to have been introduced to her and to have her support in and out of the water during these few months of training. My family and friends are, I think something I work really hard to hone in on is a gratitude mindset and to be grateful for all that I do have rather than focusing on the things that I don't. And my family and friends make that so easy because they're the greatest support I could have. And I could only wish that everyone has people like them in their life, because this is really hard. Like, I'm 23 years old and I just lost my foot and part of my leg in a shark attack. And the rest of my life, I'm an amputee. And to have the support that I have is truly everything that's carried me through. And that's daily check-ins of thinking, I'm almost 10 months out right now, and I still have friends texting me, I'm thinking of you today. And like, that's incredible that 10 months out, I still have people who are in my life like that. And my family, I grew up, I mentioned I have 3 brothers. We're super close in age, but also just in our relationships. And they've been so beyond helpful. My mom is actually a cognitive behavioral therapist. And so she has, not only as a mother, been amazing, but also has some like skills that have really helped me. And that is the funniest person I know, and who doesn't want to laugh when they're in tears. So they've been so incredible. And I was talking with my mom the other day, and I'm saying, sometimes your friends or your family say, I'd do anything for you. Like, I'd do anything for you. And of course, I'd never wish this was the way to test that, but I have really been like able to test that. And I can sit here and say, like, my friends and family would do anything for me. I think now more than ever, the mental component of swimming has been so important for me, and more of a hurdle than it's ever been either. I mentioned I worked really hard to maintain that positive mindset, and I think that's huge for me. I could sit here and look at my story and say, I lost my foot and my part of my leg in a shark attack, and I'm 23 and I'm an amputee for the rest of my life, and be devastated about that. But I could also look at that story and say, can I focus on the miracles and the people who saved me, and most importantly, like, the fact that I'm alive. Most people die from a shark attack. So how lucky am I that I'm here? And I work really hard to maintain that mindset. And the people in my life make it so much easier to do that. But of course, there are days where like I just can't, and it feels like too much, and it feels too heavy. And learning to have grace with myself has also been a huge piece of like my mental resilience, is that like sometimes you're gonna have those days where it's just too much, and that's okay. And like, be gentle with yourself and know that those days are happening, and it's okay that they're happening. But I think, on a large scale, just in terms of swimming, there's so much I can point to of like newness in a sport that I've known since I was 7 years old. And so I mentioned my love of the water. It's super important to me following the attack that I didn't lose that love of the water. And so I was determined to get back in. But in those beginning days, the first time, in my mind, the last time I had heard the sound of water, I was swimming for my life. And so to get back in was really hard.
Right.
And then it transitioned from, not only was it hard to get back in, but, I soon discovered that sprinting in training reminded my mind and body of sprinting away from the shark.
Yeah.
And having to get over all those fears. And then, each new step I got to, there was more. So like getting up on the blocks, I get up on one leg. I hold, take your marks on one leg. I dive in on one leg,
Right.
underwater, flip turn. And beyond the physical challenge of that, there's also the mental challenge of all these fears of like, am I going to fall off the box? Am I shaking? Am I going to get my leg in flip turn? And overcoming sort of your body's like subconscious response to that fear is also a challenge. Yeah, so basically trials are at the end of June, which will be just over a year out from the attack and the surgeries and the amputation.
Yeah.
And so it's a quick turnaround for me and an ambitious goal, especially considering the first few months after the attack, I was primarily horizontal on a couch aside from some physical therapy.
Right.
So Jamie and I have some wood to chop fast. And I talked about initially, it was really about, can I get back in the water without too many flashbacks?
Right.
And so it was just getting me comfortable in the water and overcoming, those different fears.
Yeah.
And then that enabled us to start working on some endurance, which I definitely needed because I was, a little weak coming out from the attack. And we also started moving into work on technique and stroke adjustments that I needed to make to account for my new balance in the bottom half of my body. So we switched up my breathing pattern in freestyle, and we've been placing a really heavy emphasis on focusing on trying to have good head position in the water, because that's where your hips are, which helps with, again, that imbalance. And we've been focusing a lot also on, we're still working on starts and turns again on one leg. Like, it's crazy to think about all those new aspects that we've been working on. And recently we've been mixing in some sprint work, which is, I feel really proud about, not only from that I'm in a place where I have enough of an aerobic base that we can start some sprint work, but also that I'm in a place emotionally and mentally where, just a few months later, I'm able to do that sprint work without having flashbacks from the attack hinder that. Yeah, I'm looking to pull a rabbit out of the hat here a little bit and try to qualify for the Paralympics.
Yeah.
Just after the attack and the amputation, but I want the once in a lifetime opportunity and honor to represent my country and compete. And I want to make it, but I also have, my biggest dream is that I make the Paralympics and 4 of my best friends make the Olympics. So Bella Hinley, one of my former Yale teammates, is trying to make it for England. And then some childhood best friends and high school best friends who you might have heard of, Alex, Gretchen Walsh, and Kate Douglas.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about how special that would be if all of us made it, and how unreal that would be to have all 5 of us representing the U.S.
Right.
So I love that question, first of all, because what a great outlook to be, in this first year and still be able to have that. But I think early on in my recovery, one of my friends gave me a book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And in the book, one of the messages is, it's so easy to look at a story like mine and for me to sit here and say, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why I have to be the one to go through this? But instead of thinking about it that way, can I think about how am I going to make meaning of what's happened? Sort of like a radical acceptance, it's happened. How can I make meaning? And for me, the notion that I could help someone else get through their trauma, the notion that I could be an advocate or whatever that looks like is so exciting and so inspiring for me that I can still be a leader in a space that I'm new to or, coming into. And so I'm excited to find my pockets and my opportunities to help other people and make meaning of what's happened to me. I'm continuing to learn myself, but throughout sort of my experience, I feel like I've learned three main things that have really helped me. Those would be mindset, vulnerability, and flexible leadership. And so for me, I think I spoke a little bit about this a second ago, but I've worked really hard to maintain, I call it a gratitude and grace mindset.
Absolutely.
And it's focusing on the positive and what you do have and what you can be thankful for and who you can be thankful for, or trying to, as much as you can, as opposed to what you've lost.
Right.
And I try really hard. I've made it a priority to sort of really think about my story in that way. And of course that comes with, it's easier said than done. And so there are those days that it's too hard, and having grace with yourself that those days are going to come too, which sort of leads into my second learning, which is the vulnerability piece. And I think, in a similar vein, I guess vulnerability is something I've struggled with my whole life. So I'm not a naturally vulnerable person. I aspire to spread light and love and happiness and laughter. And so it doesn't come naturally for me to share my hardships with people who are close to me. And on top of that, I think sport sort of isn't a natural place to be vulnerable either. Like, we're encouraged to push through when things are hard or when we're sore or tired. And so I was coming from this place where I really wasn't a naturally vulnerable person. And I actually think that, my vulnerability these past months has made me a better person and has made me a better athlete. And, I'm lucky because of how incredible my support system is, my friends, my family, my coaches.
Right.
And I encourage people, like, whoever that is for you in your life, lean on them, welcome the help, be vulnerable. Like, these people want to help you, and it really does make a difference. And the third thing I'd say is a huge learning for me, truthfully throughout my whole swim career, is that leadership is so flexible if we allow it.
Right.
And I think sometimes there's this strict definition where a leader has to be the one at the front, or the one calling the shots, or the captain, or the one scoring the points. And in reality, sometimes it is that person, but sometimes a leader is the first to follow. Sometimes a leader is the one who's setting the tone at practice, pushing everyone else to work harder. Sometimes a leader is, the one decorating the locker room the night before competition. And so for me, I've been able to try out each of those roles. I can think about, even in college, freshman year, I was working to be a leader by bonding with the team and bonding the freshman class and being a culture carrier. And sophomore year, I was working to be a leader by scoring pivotal points at all Ivy champs and carrying that pressure gracefully. And my junior year, I was working to be a leader by trying to be the loudest cheerer on deck, bar none, because I wasn't performing in the pool the way I wanted because I had just been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And so, one of the greatest compliments I've ever received was that year my coach took a photo of me, my Yale coach, Jim Henry, he took a photo of me cheering at one of the meets, and he wrote, it can be our day even if it's not my day. And I left that meet and I was like, wow, leadership is so flexible. I wasn't the captain, I wasn't doing anything meaningful in the pool that season, honestly, and I was still able to contribute.
Right.
I think about, for me, that's such an exciting thought.
Yeah.
To think, no matter what life throws at me, no matter what I'm going through, I can still be a leader in that situation. And especially through hardship or trauma or whatever you're adjusting to, the idea that you could still contribute to the space that you're in, you can still be a leader, you can still have that impact. It's so empowering and encouraging. And so I'd advise people to just not count themselves out.
Yeah.